Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be listing to you my favourite books of Q1 2023. I have read quite a lot of books this quarter. I've actually read almost 50 books, which I have to say completely blew my expectations out of the water. I don't normally really have a target. I try to read as many books as I can, but I'm not one of those people that feels like they need to hit their target. I actually hit a target of 50 books this year because I'm actually having a really busy year, especially compared to last year. And yet I seem to be reading more. So that's weird, but I'm not going to complain. So I've picked 12 books. They are ranked. And without further ado, let's get started. So in last place, we have The Mermaid's Tale by D.G. Valdron. This is a book that I read recently. I will have a review of it coming out soon if it's not already out. But this is a very unique fantasy book, very, very dark. I wouldn't even call it grim dark. It's just straight up dark fantasy. Very graphic in every single way. All the trigger warnings possible. But it's one of those stories where you just need to buckle in and go along for the ride. And that's exactly what I did. Valdron's writing style is super unique. I've not come across anybody who writes like him, but it's very appropriate for the type of story that he is telling, which is very much a thriller story. It's very much a story where there has been a crime that has been committed, and we are following the main character as she tries to understand who committed the crime and why they committed the crime to bring justice to that person and other people who were also murdered. And there's this incredible journey of self-discovery for the main character that I was not expecting, but I completely fell in love with. And it's one of those stories that there is nothing like this out there right now. I mean, I've read a lot of fantasy, and this has to be one of the most unique fantasy books that I've ever read. My review's already out, I will link it down below. If not, watch this space. In next place, we have, and I'm going in descending order. So in next place, I think this is 11th place, we have Fulgentius by Cesare Ira. My review would have come out of this relatively recently, so definitely go take a look if you want a deeper dive into what this book is about. But we are essentially following the character of Fulgentius, who is a military leader, but he also moonlights as a theatre writer and director. And we just get his philosophical musings about life, about war, about politics, about many, many different topics. And I personally really connected with the character of Fulgentius. This book actually really reminded me of K.J. Barker's works and the way that he does characters. And so I really felt a kinship to this individual, even though he's very morally grey and he's definitely got some things that I'd like to think I don't have, but it's still very much a joy to read. It's very philosophical, very layered. And so if you're looking for something that's quick but has a lot of depth, then Fulgentius is definitely for you. Next, in 10th place, we have Small Worlds by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This book is incredible. Caleb Azumah Nelson's writing is incredible, very emotional, very much about the first generation and second generation immigrant struggle, very much about how music can be so important and additive to our lives. It's about relationships, it's about the cities that we live in and the emotions that we have to those cities. I think one of the things that Caleb Azumah Nelson does extremely well is how music is almost like a character in itself, and how London, or specifically Southeast London, is a character in itself. You don't have to be a person who knows tons or anything about London or anything about really music, or, you know, kind of specifically hip hop and reggae and blues, those kinds of genres. But I feel like if you do like that sort of music, and if you have lived in London or you know about the cultural microcosms in London, then I feel like you will take something more away from it. I loved it, and I cannot wait to see what else this author writes next. In next place, we had The Adventures of Amina AlSarafi by none other than S.A. Chakraborty. Love this book so much. I love the character of Amina. I love the fact that we were following a older woman who has a child who's kind of past her prime, and yet she misses that life. She misses the life that she once had, which was a life of adventure, which was a life of seeking treasures and pleasures and all the things. And I really loved the cultural and religious aspects of this book. It was a very, very pleasant surprise for me. And not that it's necessarily a requirement for me, it's not at all. But if I have it and it feels authentic, then I am going to be very happy. And I was with this book. I loved it, and it's there's a reason why it's on this list. Next on my list, we have A City Dreaming by Daniel Polanski. I love Daniel Polanski's writing. His writing is very, very unique in my opinion. It's very colloquial, but there is a certain level of almost poetry to his work that is very specific to Polanski that I've never seen anybody else do. I think if you are somebody who likes darker fantasy that's very, very character driven with very interesting, compelling characters, then Daniel Polanski is for you. I've read a few of his books now. I'm going to be reading his new book very soon, and I just have a feeling, I mean, he's already a favorite author now that I've read multiple works by him, but I have a really strong feeling that he's going to become like potentially even one of my top 3 or 4 authors, which is pretty crazy. It doesn't happen often, but I have a feeling once I read one of his series, he's going to be up there. Next on my list, we have The Daughters of Ishtar by Hadia Elsbai. This is another Middle Eastern, North African inspired fantasy. It is about 2 women, one woman who is a noble woman and then one woman who is a lower class in society. And it's about their struggles in trying to fulfill the destinies that they want to fulfill. I just really like the character work in this book. I really love the world building in this book. I really like the plot and the academic setting that we have towards the middle and end of this book. There were just lots of layers to it that I was not expecting. I knew I would like it, but I really, really, really loved it. And I think it's just because Hadia Elsbai just has this really wonderful way with words. Like, she really knows how to use words to get her point across. And it's just a dream to read, a real, real dream to read, and I cannot wait for the second book. All right, we are on to the 6th one, and that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. It was my first book that I've read by this author. She's written quite a lot of different books now, and I loved it. It's a very short book, but it's really a book about identity and the struggle that we all have in wanting to fit into a certain, I don't know, niche of society. It's also about greed. It's also about how societal dynamics have fundamentally changed in some ways, but how in others they haven't, and how that impacts individuals in different cultures and society. I just thought it was one of those books that I kind of constantly felt like I was on the edge of my seat. I didn't really know what to expect, and yet I knew something was going to go wrong. I just did not know what. And when the shoe inevitably does drop, there is a very satisfying resolution to everything, and I really, really liked it. All right, we are down to the top 5. In 5th place, we have The Great Ordeal by R. Scott Baker. I love this book. Like, I really, really love this book. This one for me was probably one of the hardest to read. Very, very dense, very, very philosophical. And when I finished it, immediately after, I ended up rating it lower than what I've now rated it, which is a full 5 stars. But at the time, I think I rated it like a 4.5, which is probably one of my lower ratings of the Second Apocalypse books. But as I reflected on it more and more, and I went back and read little sections, I just realised how much of a masterpiece that book is. And it's because Baker has this absolutely phenomenal ability to pack in so many different things, themes, philosophical elements, character arcs and interactions. Like, he manages to pack this all into just even like in one chapter, and it's just absolutely incredible. There's so much that also goes down in this book that, again, I wasn't really expecting it, and by the end of it I was so exhausted by reading it, and not because I didn't enjoy it, quite the opposite actually. I just felt like I was on this insane ride with these characters, and I feel like there's very few authors who actually manage to do that. All right, and then in 4th place, we have Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. I'm actually really surprised that I ranked this in my top 5. Like, I really love this book. I loved a lot of the deeper philosophical thematic work, a lot around kind of political systems. It's all about, you know, what it means to rule by command and the impacts of that on the people that you're ruling and also on yourself. There's lots of kind of different threads. I just thought there were really interesting character interactions in this one, much more so than Dune. I much preferred this one to Dune, and I think it's just because we get that really zoomed in look at each of the characters. I only wish it had been longer, but regardless, I still loved it. All right, we are down to the top 3. I wonder if anybody's guessed what I put in my top 3. In 3rd place, we have the unpublished Savius Corax Deals with the Dead by K.J. Parker. So this is not out yet. I haven't done a review for it. I will be doing a review for it closer to when it comes out, which I think is in September time. Still a very long way to go. KJ Parker very kindly sent me all 3 books actually in this series. I haven't read the second or the third book just yet, but I read the first book in like a day or 2. I was absolutely hooked. This is probably one of my favorite KJ Parker books. It's without a doubt in my top 3. I still think The Folding Knife is my favorite, and I still think The Company is a very close second. And then I think Savius Corax Deals with the Dead is probably third. But honestly, those 3 books are so interchangeable that I don't really care. They're just, all 3 of them are absolute masterpieces. But I loved everything about this book. I loved the character of Savius. I really loved the plot lines. There were multiple plot lines in true Parker style. We also had a really compelling female character that I've kind of been missing from Parker books. We do tend to get some female characters, but they very rarely take the center stage. And yet we had a really compelling female character in this book, which goes to show that he can write female characters, despite what he said in my interview with him. I just thought it was so funny as well. There's a lot of humor in this book, and I found all the characters to be incredibly relatable in the way that Parker always manages to achieve. So watch this space for my review coming out in a few months' time. Definitely go and pre-order it now. It's absolutely phenomenal, but I will be doing a more detailed review in a couple of months. All right, so in second place, we have A Quiet Vengeance by Tim Hardy. Incredible book. Absolutely incredible book. I read this book in less than a day. I missed my morning at the gym, which never happens. And it was super addictive. It's very, very character-centric. It's about these 2 characters, a young prince and then also a young orphan who ends up essentially becoming like a banker. And it's about a mystery that is surrounding these 2 characters when they were children, and then we see them as adults and we see their kind of interactions and the kind of wider political landscape. So absolutely phenomenal character work. As you all know, I'm a character-driven reader, and this has got to be one of the best ones out there. It's very well paced. It's very, very well written. And the mystery element kind of keeps us on the edge of our toes because we don't really know what's happening. And yet when we find out, it is very satisfying. And the resolution to the book, because it is only a standalone, just kind of hit all the notes. Tim did everything perfectly in this book. I would not change it. I only just wish there was maybe a trilogy so that I could read these characters again. But from what I understand, he's doing 2 more books set in the same world, but it will be different characters. So I'm excited for that, but you have to read A Quiet Vengeance, guys. Like, you just absolutely have to. I have a review of it. Definitely go check it out. I just basically gush about it for about 10 minutes. All right, and then that means we have 1 book left, and in first place we have, believe it or not, a sci-fi book, which I don't think has ever happened, and that is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This is a book that I still think about every single day. This book is incredibly emotional. It's really about the human experience. It's really about intelligence and what is intelligence. It's about emotion, what is human emotion, and what are the limits that we can push that human emotion. Can there be such a thing as artificial intelligence or artificial emotion? And it just brought up a lot of questions for me, questions that I'm personally just very, very interested in. And I studied as well when I was at university, and it just hit the notes. There were also some really interesting sub-themes about like family trauma and about academia and the many issues with academia. So there's lots kind of packed into such a small book. I think it's only like 220 pages. And yet it's one of those books that genuinely will stay with you for a very, very, very long time. I loved everything about it. The character of Charlie, oh man. Charlie has a special place in my heart. I feel for that guy so much. And yet, even though, at least for me, he's very different to my own lived experience, especially at the start of the book, I couldn't help but identify with him in certain ways. And I feel like everybody will identify with him in certain ways. So if you're looking for something that's kind of meta, but still very grounded in reality, then you should definitely go and read Flowers for Algernon because it's absolutely phenomenal. So there we have it. Those are my top books of Q1 2023. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to do this for Q2 because my reading has already slowed down quite a lot. I've got a lot of deadlines coming up and a lot of projects launching and things like that. I've got some changes coming to my channel soon. So there's like a lot happening, but we'll see. I might just skip Q2 and do Q2 and Q3 together. I don't know. We'll see. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit me down below with your kind of top 5 to 10 books that you've already read, and if there's any ones that you particularly recommend to me, let me know, and I'll see you down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe as always, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.